community organization. She believes that the economic hardships caused by COVID-19 in a community that was already struggling could be a major cause of the rise in gun violence.
When the pandemic initially hit, violence numbers dropped because individuals were inside, right? We were quarantined. They weren't really out on the street. But as we started to open up, our violence numbers started to hit the highest that they've ever been. And that was just as a result of the temperament that people are on as a result of the pandemic. So we had people that could not get on unemployment, people that lost their jobs. We have individuals that were coming, that were released from prison with no resources, right? So here we are, we're saying, okay, we're going to let you out because of a pandemic, but we're going to provide very little support for you to become successful. All that creates chaos. Chaos in families lead to chaos in communities. A hungry person can become a violent person.
Lost jobs, lack of resources, hunger. On top of these, criminologists also attribute the rise in shootings to pandemic-induced cabin fever and the advent of summer, traditionally high crime season. The New York Police Department, however, has blamed a recent bail reform law, which limits a judge's ability to keep people in jail pre-trial. They also connect the rise in gun violence to the emergency release of incarcerated people in order to curb the spread of coronavirus. The Black Lives Matter protest and calls to defund the police, they say, led to the disbanding of the NYPD's anti-crime plainclothes unit, which meant less policing and more shootings.
Rhetoric of defund the police, get rid of the police, abolish the police, that's got to end.
We need three things. I'm going to keep repeating it for people. We need support. We need laws that help the police instead of handcuff them. And then we need resources.
They've blamed the shutdown in the courts. They've blamed the bail law. They've blamed just the prosecutors. I mean, it's like, pick a reason and they've blamed it. But where they faltered is providing the evidence.
Anyone who's out there surmising what kind of impact the pandemic has had on violence is just doing no more than surmising. And if they're coming up with very firm conclusions that the pandemic means that there's more violence, means we should be giving more money to police, and it's especially that message is coming from the police, we should be really wary of any assumptions that are being drawn.
Scott Heckinger is a public defender and the former director of policy for Brooklyn Defender Services. Today, he's the founder and director of Zealous, a national advocacy group of public defenders working towards ending mass incarceration.
Police are the reason why there is more crime, so-called crime, in these neighborhoods, and more violence. Characteristics that drive violence: isolation, shame, economic deprivation, and violence itself are the primary consequences of over-policing in communities. It makes communities feel isolated, makes people feel ashamed. It takes away resources that otherwise would be spent on poverty alleviation, and being handcuffed, even if you ultimately don't get arrested, being stopped and frisked unconstitutionally, being shot by police is obviously a form of violence itself.
Police officers, there's very little engagement. There's a lot of patrolling, right? There's a lot of looking, and there's very little interaction. In our community, at the state that it's in now, we need engagement. We need interaction. We need people to know how we're feeling and how's our day going, and we need, to have support systems around. And that's what the Cure Violence organizations provide. It's a big support system for communities.
Cure Violence programs take a public health approach to reducing violence by training credible insiders to be what are known as violence interrupters, usually former gang members who draw from their own experiences. Their job is to engage with young people and then identify and mediate potential conflicts before they turn violent.
I want to show the black young male and also the black young lady what a black male can be even when you go through all that. Despite me going through all that I've been through, prison, being shot, shooting people, being arrested for murders, being accused of murders, being in prison, going to war.